In a house on the edge of a quiet town, an alarm clock rang. Mark reached out to turn off the constant ringing and lay still for a few more seconds, enjoying the silence. He was always the first to get up, ensuring he had enough time to prepare for work. In the kitchen, his wife, Vanessa, was already busy. She stood by the stove, frying eggs while occasionally glancing at her phone. Their 6-year-old daughter, Lexi, was still sound asleep, cuddled up with her plush bunny. "Good morning," Mark said as he walked into the kitchen. He looked tired, but a soft smile appeared on his face. "Morning," Vanessa replied briefly without turning around. She skillfully flipped the eggs in the pan and placed them on a plate. Mark poured himself a cup of coffee and sat at the table. "It's going to be another long day," he sighed, staring at his cup. "You work too much," Vanessa commented, her voice calm but lacking warmth. "Someone has to bring in the money," he replied with a slight smile. Vanessa didn't respond. She cleared the table and checked her phone again. Over the past few weeks, Mark had noticed that she had become more distracted and often avoided conversations. "Is Lexi going to daycare today?" he asked, trying to change the subject. "Yes, I'll take her after breakfast," Vanessa answered, finally looking at him. Mark finished his coffee, stood up and said, "All right, I'd better get going. Hopefully today will be a quiet day at work." He quickly kissed Vanessa on the cheek, grabbed his briefcase, and walked out the door, unaware that his familiar routine was about to be shaken. She sat there in silence for a brief moment, then stood up and retreated to her room, leaving Mark alone with his thoughts. That evening, after Lexi had drifted off to sleep, Mark sat on the couch, lost in his own mind. He thought about Vanessa, how she had left, and how her absence had completely shaken his world. It felt as though all his problems, the debts, the company's struggles, and the widening gap between him and his wife, had become too much to bear. He attempted to focus on his work, but his thoughts kept returning to her departure and the growing realization that perhaps she wasn't coming back. Different scenarios played out in his mind. He wanted to rationalize her leaving, but just as before, he couldn't understand what was happening between them. In the quiet of the evening, when everything around him calmed and Lexi was asleep, Mark felt the weight of this difficult period. He didn't know how much longer he could endure this situation. The mounting debts, the ever-increasing pressure at the company, and his nerves stretched to their breaking point. Yet, during these moments, a thought occasionally crossed his mind. Maybe Vanessa had left to help him. He remembered how she always said she would support him, that she would do anything for the family. At first, it took him a while to accept that maybe her leaving was her way of helping. In his desperation, he convinced himself that it was for him, that maybe she had taken on this burden so he wouldn't feel worse. Mark often recalled how Vanessa had always stood by him, how she supported him even when he hadn't fully appreciated it. She had always emphasized the importance of working for the family, of sticking together through tough times. But in his fixation on these memories, he couldn't see that she was going through something entirely different. Now, sitting in silence, he felt even more guilty. Vanessa had been a strong woman, while he felt weak and lost. He hadn't noticed how her emotions had been pushed aside. He couldn't comprehend that her leaving wasn't about caring for him, but rather about her desire to move on and start a new chapter, one in which he no longer had a part to play. This realization only made Mark feel worse. He convinced himself that maybe Vanessa had seen him as the man who couldn't provide for the family, and that's why she decided to take matters into her own hands. He kept thinking that if he had been better, she wouldn't have left. He had never been good with business, always focused on problems, while she had always been there, supporting him, even if he hadn't noticed it at the time. Despite all of these thoughts, his heart remained empty. He longed for her return, for everything to be fixed, so he could finally greet her with a smile and assure her that everything would be okay. Each day felt like a repetition of the one before. Mark would wake up early, spending the morning at the office, once again drowning in problems, and then return home to the quiet that awaited him. Lexi would often ask about her mother, but Mark tried to mask his own uncertainty. Over and over, He reassured her that Vanessa would return, that Mom was just working. "When will Mom come back?" Lexi asked again one day, while Mark sat in his chair, lost in thought. "She's working. She'll be back soon," Mark replied, trying to offer his daughter the comfort she was looking for, though deep down, he was growing more and more convinced that Vanessa had left to help him. He believed she still loved him, even from a distance. It had become his new truth, and he wasn't ready to question it. With each passing day, the weight of his debts grew heavier. Vanessa had always said that the family should stay united during tough times, but Mark couldn't shake the feeling of isolation. He frequently thought about her decision to leave, convincing himself that it was an act of self-sacrifice. But this sense of false comfort persisted. He couldn't bring himself to believe otherwise. One evening, sitting in the kitchen with a cup of coffee, he became lost in his thoughts again, repeating to himself, "Vanessa left to help. I was blind. I didn't see how hard she tried." This thought lingered for days, and Vanessa became an increasingly idealized figure in his mind. A woman who, despite her own feelings, made the difficult choice for their sake. Mark felt he should be grateful for her actions, but he couldn't see that she had left not out of care, but because her emotions had faded long ago, and her love had been drained by his struggles. To Mark, believing in this idea was his salvation, and he was willing to hold on to it until the moment of truth arrived. "I don't want to appear like I'm avoiding his gaze, hiding what's within me. It's not that I'm concealing anything. I simply want to enjoy myself," I respond, trying to lighten the mood, yet the heaviness lingers in my chest. I can't quite explain why his focus unsettles me, or why he feels so different from all the other men I've encountered lately. Every night, I lie in this bed, growing more unfamiliar to me with each passing day, yet I feel the emptiness creeping back in. I try to push it aside, but it always returns. Yesterday, I came so close to admitting to myself that I'm not here for mere pleasure. There's something deeper at play. I entered my room yesterday. The day felt strange, and I wasn't in the mood for adventures. I didn't crave any more encounters. I just wanted solitude. I opened the door, switched on the lamp, and the room, dimly lit by the streetlight outside, felt like a shadow of what it once was. Sitting on the bed, my thoughts spiraled with unease. Why does it feel like I'm losing something? Why? Despite all the nights and the fleeting fun, is there still an emptiness within me? I closed my eyes, and once again, I thought of Mark. I remembered his care, the happiness we once had when everything seemed perfect, or was it just a dream? I don't know anymore. When morning came, I felt the urge to change. I couldn't keep ignoring what was inside me. Maybe I need to rediscover myself. But how? Why? Sometimes, it feels like this life is a trap, too comfortable to escape. But is it the life I truly want? I don't want to admit it, but eventually it will become hard for me to stop. Today was one of those days when everything just hit me. I was on the balcony, staring at the sea, my mind racing, but no answers came. I longed for a moment of clarity, but instead, I kept doing what I always do, hiding behind a mask. "You're not quite yourself," he said again, this acquaintance of mine. He noticed it, his gaze turning serious. I turned away, unwilling to reveal the turmoil within me. I wasn't ready to admit that I cared, that this life I'd created for myself was merely a facade, a way to mask my pain. "It's nothing, just tired. Everything's fine." I smiled again, but this time the smile felt hollow, lacking sincerity. Sometimes, when I close my eyes, I see his face, feel his gaze, and I feel guilty, but only when I'm alone. Here, in this place, I can be anyone. I can forget everything. But deep inside, there's always something that pulls me back to reality. At night, I'm alone again. This time, I'm not searching for adventure or comfort in someone else's arms. I just want silence, but it doesn't bring peace. I hear a voice in my head, repeating the same words. "You can't keep going like this. You need to change something." All I can do is lie there, staring at the ceiling, trying to quiet my racing heart. The truth can no longer be ignored. Later, I enter the room, shut the door, and sit on the bed. Once again, thoughts of the new day leave me restless. I pick up my phone to check for messages, but there's nothing new. Then, suddenly, a call. I frown, not expecting anyone to reach out at this hour. The screen lights up with the name Alex, one of the people I met here at the resort, persistent but friendly. Hello. I answer, not expecting it to shift my mood. Hey, Vanessa! His voice is lively, filled with excitement. Where are you? We're having a private party here. I was waiting for you. Want to come? It's going to be amazing. I hold the phone to my ear, taking a moment to find the right words. Hey, Alex, I'm not sure. I'm a little tired today. Maybe next time. No, you have to come. I insist, he says, nearly pleading. You won't want to miss this party, music, the vibe. I'm telling you, you'll love it. I glance out the window at the darkening sky. For a moment, I feel a pull, a sense that maybe I should go out and push these thoughts away. I was tired of reflecting. You're really insisting, huh? I smile, my voice softening. Of course. You know how much I love to please. Alex laughs, and his joy is contagious. You'll come, right? I'm sure you'll have a blast. I fall silent, a battle taking place inside me. But eventually, I decide that if I'm going to follow the flow, I might as well enjoy it. All right, you convince me, I say with a light laugh. I'll come, but promise me you won't torment me the whole night. I promise, he says, his voice filled with joy. I'm waiting for you, don't be late. He ends a call, and I pause, torn. On one hand, I'm tired of the endless parties and the unfamiliar faces, but on the other, maybe tonight will be different. Maybe I can change, even if just for a few hours. When I step outside, the air is warm with a faint scent of the sea. The resort's atmosphere shifts as night falls, becoming livelier, more vibrant. I make my way to the location Alex mentioned. I don't dwell on what I'm leaving behind. Tonight is for me. I reach the bar, where everyone's gathering for the party. Cars are already parked nearby. I spot some familiar faces, but avoid lingering on them. They're part of this world, and for now, the only thing that matters is how I feel right here, right now. Vanessa, Alex calls again, his smile wide. He strides toward me, pulling me into a hug before I can even speak. You came. I knew you wouldn't let me down. Here I am, I reply, feeling his energy begin to awaken something inside me. So, where's the fun? He takes my hand and leads me deeper into the club, where the music pulses and the atmosphere hums with laughter, conversation, and a faint smoky scent. I don't even try to listen to the words. Everything feels too loud, too bright. The world around me starts to blur, like a wave pulling me in, no strings attached. I dance, I laugh, I smile, and for once, I don't care what tomorrow brings. I don't think, I just let myself become part of the crowd. The rhythm swallows me, and I feel the tension of the day slip away. Alex is close by, nudging me as we dance, laughing together. I move, trying to escape the weight of my life, not thinking about the room I left behind, not thinking about what's going on at home. I am here, in this moment, with this music, these faces. A familiar face from the crowd hands me a drink. I take it, smile, and dance again, laughing even louder. No questions arise in my mind, but then I feel it again, the gaze. It's him, the man we spoke to earlier. His eyes are fixed on me as he stands by the bar. I try to look away, but his gaze lingers. I meet his eyes again, and for a moment, it feels as if he sees straight through me. I look away, but I still feel his gaze on me. Thoughts swirl, and I begin to feel out of place, lost in everything around me. Each sip of the drink feels like a thin veil, clouding my mind from reality. The music gets louder. The dance grows wilder. I don't want to remember anything tonight. I just want to lose myself. Before I can even comprehend it, I'm in the center of the dance floor, surrounded by people, laughter, music, all merging together. I drink, one glass after another, no longer caring about the words or what anyone is saying. All the noise feels like a shell, a place to hide from what truly hurts. And then Alex is next to me again, his smile broad, but something in his eyes makes me uneasy. There's a hint of something, like he expects more than just a dance. "Hey, Vanessa," he grabs my shoulder, pulling me toward him. "Come with me. There's something interesting in another room. You won't regret it." I glance around at the dancers, the crowd, and suddenly I feel awkward. The atmosphere, the noise, it's too much. Something inside me resists, but I hide it and nod. "Where are we going?" I ask, trying to mask my confusion. "Just follow me, you'll see," he says, tugging me along. We move through a dark hallway lit by dim lamps, and the sounds of the party begin to fade as we approach a door behind a heavy curtain. He knocks, and without waiting for an answer, he opens it. "Hey, guys," he says cheerfully, pulling me inside. Several people greet me. Their gaze is immediately fixed on me, some sizing me up. "Vanessa, these are my friends. Let me introduce you," Alex says, leading me further into the room. The atmosphere shifts, less noise but a palpable tension. Men and women sit on plush sofas, smiling at me, as if waiting for me to make the next move. I feel their eyes on me, and before I can think, Alex guides me to a seat. "Sit down, don't be shy. Everyone here is like family." I nod, but something stirs within me. I know this place isn't for me, but there's something in the smiles, the voices of these people, that makes me hesitate. The gazes aren't aggressive but persistent, waiting for my reaction. I grab another glass, feeling it lift me slightly, taking me to a place where I can forget everything behind the door. But I can't shake the feeling that I'm standing on the edge, uncertain of what comes next. He goes quiet, and I sense the emptiness tug at me. I don't know what comes next, or what I'm supposed to do now. "Lexi wants to see you. We're waiting for you. You will come back, right?" His voice holds a sense of hope, but I feel like I'm losing my grip again. I shut my eyes, unsure of how to respond. How can I go back home when everything is already changed? How can I return and be the person I was, the person he loves? "Yes, I'll come back," I barely whisper, but I'm no longer certain of my own words. It feels like a lie I'm telling myself just to ease the tension. When Vanessa was away, I felt a strange relief. In the first few days of her absence, everything seemed hollow and heavy. I thought I wouldn't survive the loneliness, the feeling of everything falling apart and going nowhere. But as time went on and she stayed away, I began to feel like I was slowly healing. Lexi became my anchor. Her simple joy and smile helped me fight off the thoughts that would have consumed me before. I spent more time outside, thinking more about myself, about what mattered to me, not to everyone around me. I stopped obsessing over debts and work issues, letting go of the weight as if freeing myself from it all. Over time, I realized that not everything from the past was worth holding on to. The exhaustion, the emotional weight, the constant worries. All of it no longer seemed to match the new perspective I was starting to gain. I began to see potential opportunities for change. My mindset improved dramatically, and I felt a rush of energy returning. Work was getting better, and I felt strong and confident again. This didn't mean I had forgotten about Vanessa or what had happened between us, but I refused to let the past dictate how I should live. I was becoming myself again, someone who could smile, laugh, and even feel light inside. I understood that Vanessa may not have been able to process things the way I did. Her struggles were different. Her battle was more internal than external. But I had to move on. When she came back, I would be ready to meet her as a changed person. I wouldn't carry those burdens or fears with me anymore. I was ready to face the future, no matter what it held. Then I heard her voice, Something inside me jolted. This was the moment when I had to decide what to do next. Vanessa was returning, and I was ready to meet her. Not as the person who anxiously analyzed every step she took or every silence she left, but as someone who had finally realized that life wasn't just about responsibilities, but also about personal growth and happiness. She kept crying, and despite my own emotions, I felt the need to be the one to support her. I wasn't weak. I wasn't the type to shout or get offended. I was someone different now, someone ready to look ahead. I knew our relationship had never been perfect, that there were so many things we both hid from each other. But as I felt this newfound lightness in my heart, I decided not to dwell on the past. We both made mistakes, but that didn't mean it was all over. I miss you. You'll come back, right? His words were so calm, so certain that I felt myself losing the last bit of strength I had to maintain my composure. I miss you too, I barely managed to reply. I fought to hold back the tears, but they still slipped through. It hurt because I knew my actions, my irresponsibility, had led us here. Now, even when he came home, everything would be different. I wouldn't just forget what had happened. I couldn't ignore the moment I lost myself. I sighed and sat on the bed, my thoughts swirling with what I needed to do and how to explain my insensitivity, but nothing came to mind. I know you're thinking about everything, and I will come back, Mark said softly. But I trailed off, unsure how to continue. Don't worry, everything will be fine. We'll start fresh. You and Lexi are all I need, he reassured me. His words were a tether, calming me a little, but I still knew that everything would change. Both of us would change. We wouldn't be the same, and that was inevitable. Everything that came before would stay behind. I would return, but not as I was. The day before Vanessa was due back, I got a call. It was David, my childhood friend, someone I hadn't seen in years. Thinking about those days felt like returning to a time when things were simpler, easier. We'd been through a lot together, and now, after I had finally started to feel a little better, hearing his voice was like a breath of fresh air. Mark, hey, how are you? His voice was cheerful, and I could hear his laughter even through the phone. Listen, I'm in your city for business. Want to meet up? David had always been good at what he did and knew how to enjoy life. Even though we hadn't spoken in a long time, his words made me feel valued. Of course, let's do it. Where should we meet? Downtown. I'm at a club. Come on over. It's gonna be fun. His enthusiasm was contagious. I agreed without a second thought. I knew this would be a good distraction, something to take my mind off Vanessa, at least for a while. The club was packed, the music loud, and everyone seemed happy and carefree. I spotted David at the bar, and he saw me instantly, greeting me with a wide grin. "Hey, old man," he exclaimed, slapping me on the shoulder, and I felt that familiar warmth from his presence. We started chatting, but it quickly became clear that David wasn't just talking about work. There was something he was hiding, though I couldn't put my finger on it. We talked, drank, and laughed, but there was an odd feeling in the air, like something unfinished. As the night wound down, David suggested we go to a quieter room in the club. I agreed, and we followed him. The room was dimly lit, the music softer, and the people there were more relaxed, their faces flushed. David stepped into the corner and began snapping pictures. I didn't think much of it at first, until I noticed what he was photographing. "So, how's the night going?" he asked, smiling as he showed me the phone screen. He lingered on a photo for a moment before glancing at me. "Is that your wife?" he asked casually, not realizing how much weight his words carried. My heart skipped a beat. I froze, my mind racing with thoughts. "Wait, David, are you sure?" I asked, though deep down I didn't want to know. "I'm not sure, but it looks like her. You'll recognize her, won't you?" he continued, smiling as if it were nothing. I could feel my pulse quicken. Why was he asking me that? Why did that photo unsettle me so much? I tried to remain calm, but I couldn't. I don't know," I answered, looking away. It felt wrong. Everything was beginning to fall apart. David noticed my reaction and laughed. Is it really her? I tried to reassure myself that it was nothing, that it could be a coincidence. But the doubt gnawed at me. I kept talking to David, though my mind was elsewhere, tangled in confusion. Not in the mood, are you? David asked, sensing something was off. No, everything's fine. Just a little tired, I replied, forcing my voice to sound calm, though inside I was falling apart. I knew it was time to leave. David tried to convince me to stay, but I was resolute. All right, old man, see you later, I said, standing up from the table. He looked at me in confusion, but didn't stop me. The cold hit me as I stepped outside. I wrapped my coat around me and walked toward home, my thoughts weighed down by the photo, the questions I couldn't answer. How could I trust Vanessa if she could be somewhere else? Coming home didn't calm me. The house, once a place of comfort, now felt alien. When I got home, Lexi was already asleep, and the familiar silence filled the room. Vanessa still hadn't returned, and once again, I was left alone with my thoughts. I pulled out my phone and saw a message from David. Mark, you should really look at the photo. You will see for yourself. I couldn't ignore it any longer. I opened the message and stared at the picture. It was her, Vanessa. The ground seemed to disappear beneath me. I froze, unable to process the truth. What was I supposed to do now? Should I confront her? Could I trust what I was seeing? My heart raced with confusion. Was I wrong to believe everything I had? I lay on the bed, my mind spinning, unable to make sense of it all.